Victoria, and I am in interpersonal communication, and this is my interpersonal communication plan assignment. And today is October 6th. So, the way that we communicate interpersonally is through both verbal and nonverbal. And a few of those ways are with the way we use our body language, our facial expressions, the tone in our voice, our posture, different gestures we may have when we are communicating. I'm going to touch on today are my DISC assessment for my Uniquely You profile and how those contribute to both the way I interact with people I am close with as well as people that I am not close with publicly, and also with how I work with my clients. I am a patient advocate, which means I often will see patients, listen to their stories, help them through different aspects in their life. Since I work for a nonprofit pregnancy center, we often help them with their Medicaid and with certain areas that they might need counseling on um, to help them through their pregnancy. Also, I'm going to discuss communication barriers. Um, and some of those are how we need to understand the talkers versus the listeners, and communication traps that I personally fall in that can help me get past those communication barriers. Along with that, I'm going to discuss goals and strategies for talkers and listeners and how to build a good communication plan. It starts with me, and how to implement that plan. DISC assessment, I noticed that for my what is expected of me, everything was below the line. And after more research, this shows that I struggle with my identity of how I should portray myself to those outside, those that aren't oh, very close with me. And for my graph two, which is the this is me, um, I'm above the line. I'm an overachiever, and I definitely see that in my life. I have to achieve so many things or I don't feel accomplished. Um, and people that know me personally can say that too. Um, I want to feel like I'm liked by everyone, and I have to achieve everything that's thrown at me, and I often don't know where I stand, um, or what is crossing the line when it pertains to this. E for DISC assessment is active and task oriented. As I said before, all my graph ones are below the line and all my graph twos are above the line. So this means that when I'm in public, I am not as dominant or demanding. Um, but when it comes to people I am comfortable with, I am more likely to be that dominant and demanding side. And as a woman, I feel like this is something that we were just taught growing up. You are to be less dominant and less demanding um, to people that don't know you. And even that people that do know you, you're not supposed to be. But that's just who I am. For my I, that's active and people oriented. Um, when I'm out with people I don't know, I'm not very um, outgoing or talkative, but with people I do know, I am more outgoing and talkative. And I suffer from social anxiety, so this is something that definitely makes sense to me. The S is for passive and people oriented. This means I'm not as patient or um, coming off as sweet in public. And when it comes to people I'm comfortable around, I'm more sensitive and show my more caring side. Um, I need to feel security when it comes to my relationships. So that's why it's very important to me to have that sensitive and caring side so I can hold on to those um, relationships. C is passive and task oriented. I am less cautious when I'm in public. And when it comes to people I'm comfortable with, I am more cautious. I don't want to upset the people that I am close with. I want them to see that I am caring, and I don't want to push their buttons too much. And that kind of goes back into the security thing for me. Communication barriers. Um, I noticed that the talker versus the listener, I fall short on these a lot. And it wasn't until I took this course that I realized how short I fell on these. Um, for instance, as a listener, I often suffer from flat brain tango. This is when thoughts come to mind and you just stop listening to what the talker is saying, and you're waiting for them to finish so you can just get it out. That is something I've suffered with most of my life. And I feel like people that suffer with ADHD also have this, because our mind is just go, go, go. And another thing as a listener that I really suffer with is that I don't own the problem. I am one that wants to give advice. I want to fix everything. I'm a fixer, especially for people that I know and care about. And so at this point, I realized I need to divide and realize it's not my problem. And as a talker, stomach talk, according to James C. Peterson, he says that this is when you spill your guts. And I am bad at this because if I have something to say to somebody, I say it all. It's like there's no barrier or boundary there. And sadly, in many conversations, this sounds accusing and attacking to the person listening. Instead, as a talker, you need to focus directly on the situation presenting to them. And communication traps, there are a few that I fall in. One, when it comes to work, especially when it comes to trying to get those patients that feel they're not being heard. I often say, I understand, when really I can never understand the situation that they have been in or that they currently are in. I feel like by saying I understand, it's making them believe that I truly know what they're going through. Notice that there are some patients that do get annoyed by this, and I don't know what to say at that point. So I often change the subject instead of trying to help them. Another thing I do is ritual listening. I catch myself doing this when I want to tell somebody something. I will often sit and listen, but zone out at the same time. And that way I can get ready to jump in and tell my story. As I said before, someone with ADHD, this is very hard for them. And one thing that I have noticed, another communication trap, is the Perry Masons. This is an accusatory way of making statements within a question mark, according to James C. Peterson. And I do this when I get in disagreements with my family, especially my kids, and sometimes my husband. I've learned that instead of doing this, I need to learn to phrase things differently. And I need to think before, because getting out can make it sound bad, and then they can become defensive to my statements. So goals and strategies that I am looking to achieve, is I want to better my communication with the people I'm close with, so I can then teach my patients the strategies that work so they can build better communication. And this is one thing I notice a lot of the girls that I work with have never truly seen, is how to have a good communication with the people. Often they come from broken homes, and so communication is not something, it's more of screaming. And that's one thing I heard a lot. And growing up, that is something I saw with my parents. Um, another goal, I set myself two goals. The second goal is the problem owning. I know I'm a fixer, but I need to not fix everyone's problem. Um, the only way that I can achieve these goals is first being able to get the changes to implement into my own life so I can then teach it. One thing that stands out to me a lot is you practice what you preach, or you practice in what you teach. And if I don't practice it, then I can't give someone the right path to go down. So the way I can do this is I can start with the TLC method, the talker listener card method. This is something from Peterson that I thoroughly enjoyed learning about. So the ways to implement this is I can sit down with someone I am close with, I can talk to them, and I can turn the card and show them we can practice this. I will practice both as the listener and as the talker. Another way is once I achieve this is when I go into these sessions with these girls and we see them more than just once. As they come back to us over time, I can teach them how to do this properly so then they can take it into their relationships. As far as goal number 2 of making sure I don't own someone else's problem, this one was a little bit tougher for me. There are 2 techniques that really stood out to me from Peterson, the hem and haw and the both hands. So the way I can implement these is that going into a conversation, I can let the person I'm talking with know I do not own your problem. I'm here to listen, and I'm here to help you figure it out aloud, but I do not own your problem. Therefore, I cannot give advice. I cannot fix it. And this puts the ownership back on them. And the ways that I can implement this is the hem and haw. I stop giving advice. I agree through sounds like, I see. Or using both hands, such as you see it this way and you see it this way. Getting it back to them visually, like scales. That was one thing I absolutely enjoyed reading. So another thing that really stood out to me was understanding communication is key in all relationships. And that is one thing I took away. The only way to build strong relationships is through communication. One final thing is, as a provider, I don't want to get burnt out like you see so many other providers do. And oftentimes that's because they take on too many things that are someone else's problem. And so by turning that over back to the person, it's less likely that you'll face burnout. And I noticed that is something that God wants us to do. We are not to take on all our problems. We are to turn them over to Him. He wants to take on our problems for us. But we think that we know best and we are wanting to fix it ourselves. But He wants to help us. So instead of turning our problems over to somebody else, another human, let's turn them back over to God who can fix them. Thank you.